Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. Just as a check, can everybody see my screen and hear my voice perfectly? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, and welcome to the SP Geothermal Datathon wrap-up meeting. I think it's been going on for last few months, and we had a great experience, and we wanted to provide. We had a lot of fun judging the event also, so we wanted to provide some feedback to our participants and also get some feedback from the participants about the event also. So, uh, as far as agenda, there will be some welcome slides. Then we'll hear from our sponsors. We had two sponsors for this event. One was I2K Connect and Project Inner Space. So we'll hear from both of them. Then Ben will go into numbers about Datathon, how many participants, what we see in terms of data, boot camps, and everything. Then the judges review. So Andy, yeah, he was leading the judges team, so he's gonna go over what our judges saw in the submissions and good, bad, and improvements. And then we talk about Pivot 2023 because the final winners will be announced in Pivot 23, and we'll have some exciting opportunities for winners to get for all the submitters to get showcased during the Pivot 2023. So this is going to be a good opportunity. So first of all, I wanted to thank both the sponsors, Project Inner Space and I2K. I think without these sponsors, it's very hard to uh, organize these events and also provide proper prizes for the participants. So it's a very good way to engage with the community and improve the research and improve the overall knowledge and experience of everybody involved. So thank you so much to both the companies for sponsoring the event. We'll hear more from them later on. But I also wanted to mention this was a collaborative event. I think we kind of went over it during the kickoff meeting, but just wanted to mention that SPE Data Science and Engineering Analytic Technical section was kind of leading this event. Then we have people from Utah Forge, Gulf Coast section, Geothermal Technical section, Sustainability Development Technical section, and so it was a very collaborative event. And this was the second installment of the Datathon, and we aim to do more in future. So we love to hear more your feedback on how we can improve it. But here is the committee listed here. I'm not going to read all the names, but thank you so much for all the volunteers to put in their work and put in their time. This is all volunteering effort, so this makes it even more impressive, and we really appreciate that effort. So as I mentioned before, feedback is very important because we would like to continue doing these datathons. So we want to hear from you what you liked, especially what you didn't like about the competition, and any suggestions about problem statement, any suggestions about how we can improve it, what we can do to improve it. And if you want to volunteer for the datathon also, like for the next few iterations, you can also reach out to me or anybody in the committee. They will love to hear from you. And just as a fact that a lot of people, current volunteers, were the participant in the first datathon. So there is a history of doing that. Ben, can you post this link in the chat so people can link on it? So we'll put it on the chat, and please take some time to provide us some feedback about the datathon because that's very important. Moving on, I put some time to hear from our sponsor I2K Connect, but I'm not sure whether anybody, if Becky or anybody is online. Oh, Becky is here, I think. Hey, Becky, can you hear us? Okay. We might have to come back to them
Becky,
later.
Becky's on mute. Maybe that's the problem.
Okay.
Well, that didn't work.
Okay, so I think we'll come back to it. I think so. We can move on to the next part, which is Datathon in numbers, and I'll give it over to Ben to cover this part.
All right. So for this datathon, we had an overwhelming amount of participation, which was amazing. I love that. By the end, we had 150 total participants from 21 countries all around the world. This is very much not just a local event. This is truly a global event. We had 18 total teams, which ranged from 2 people in a team all the way up to the maximum 7 people in a team. So that was fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed the chance to network with your colleagues all around the world and enjoy that aspect of the Datathon. All right. So we had over 2,500 messages in Slack, which is amazing. You guys are really chatting with each other and collaborating. And we had 7 fantastic boot camps in total. We've got links to those, and those will still be live even after the Datathon is over. For the judging aspect, we had 6 judges in total that were all subject matter experts, all very well qualified to assess the submissions. And as Pushpesh mentioned, we had 18 volunteers in total, by my count at least. And of course, we had 2 wonderful industry sponsors. And soon at Pivot 2023, we'll announce the prize winners. So just a huge amount of participation from everyone, and we really appreciated all of you.
Thank you, Ben. So we'll move on to the judges review. This is where we judges wanted to provide some feedback to all the submissions. Andy, do you wanna?
Yeah, if Becky wants to go ahead and speak, she can do so before we get into the judges.
Yeah, Becky, please go ahead. I'll put in your slide here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. I want to thank everyone who participated in the Geothermal Datathon. You know, it's really important from an innovation perspective that we bring knowledgeable, outside of the box thinkers to the table to help solve these problems. Today, I'm in Houston, where the SPE is having their inaugural Energy Transition Symposium. And one of the biggest topics that we're talking about is geothermal and how it will play a role in the energy transition mix moving forward. I2K as a energy, a company focused on artificial intelligence and helping operators pull information out of their reservoir reporting and utilization, and where there are opportunities to be able to connect that knowledge that they have gained internally and be able to reuse that knowledge in repurposing their reservoirs for these types of geothermal strategies and solutions is very exciting for us. And we wanted to be a part of the Datathon. We want to thank everyone for participating in it this year. And we look forward to supporting this in the future. And thank you all for letting us be part of this experience.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. Okay, Andy, you're up.
Okay. I am actually at the SPE Energy Transition Symposium, and of course we thank you for, obviously that goes without saying that sponsorships really help drive these competitions forward and encourage people to join next year. So for the Datathon, I just wanted to go over the objective again to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what was what the criteria was for the competition. So the objective was to use the microseismic reference catalog data for the forge wells to create fracture plane interpretations of each of the stages of the 16A32 well, and then identify the optimal location of the production well, the 16B7832. We asked the participants to look using various different predictive modeling tools located below in the stretch goals. So some of these included the FatCran toolkit, GeoDT, and open source tools. We saw some really interesting results from each of the submissions. And I think you can go to the next slide here. So we wanted to just provide each of the teams with some overall feedback. So what we found the reviewers liked from the submissions, what was missing from some of the submissions, and areas of improvements for each of the teams. And we have some general summary feedback for each of the teams, and then we have targeted feedback for each of the submissions. Next slide. So overall, all the reviewers were pretty impressed with the submissions that you guys had. I will say it was quite challenging problem to accomplish everything that we had set out within the scope. And so I want to commend you all for submitting full applications. It was I was very impressed. The first topic that I want to touch on is the microseismic fracture plane interpretation. So all of the teams use the in situ stress data and fracture logs to improve their fracture picks, which is, of course, a validating concept for each of the fracture picks that you had provided. And using time and space information for clustering, we can microseismic events at different times that may not be associated with the stimulation of the wells itself. We did see a lack of QC and assurance to verify fracture picks in some of the applications, and this is something that we want to make sure going forward that those are included using the geologic context to verify the fracture plane picks. And the last comment is, we did receive one best fit for most of the fracture plane interpretation, but some of the reviewers were looking for more possibilities for fracture plane picks, whether that be through different clustering now or other means to get to other interpretations of the fractures. And approaches to evaluate best well placements was certain alert on my computer that my internet connection is unstable. So if you lose me, Luke, if you don't mind taking over for me, that would be great. But the use of different models and approaches to evaluate the best well placements, we saw a variety of different techniques and strategies to evaluate well placements, which is something that the Forge team, I'm sure, is interested in looking at and seeing how those interpretations were reached. And the consideration of more stages than just the 3 stimulation stages in 16A 7832. This was something that was really interesting. What are the impacts of putting more stages in these geothermal wells, and how can potentially delay thermal breakthrough in these wells? Additionally, the evaluation of multiple parameters, so spacing and flow rate. So varying the different parameters to determine the optimal net power output. There was a lot of focus from those teams in that context, so that was good. And then some of the teams did ignore some randomness that's included in some of the modeling software, and ultimately that system randomness is in place to add technical rigor into the application. So obviously these are pretty challenging scenarios that we have to deal with, but using the application as it's designed is important. And to address the stretch goals, in the video submissions, the contestants did not address the question of improving the simulation design. And so, that was one thing that we were really looking forward to seeing from the teams, but we did not see those in the applications. However, the lessons learned in the processing of the data and the well placement, the teams did express lessons learned and useful insights. And so hopefully the participants were able to take those learnings and apply it when they go to design geothermal wells in the future, hopefully. And many of the teams looked at different approaches for predictive modeling approaches that can be used, and using those varying parameters within those modeling software. It's important. Yeah, I'm going to stop there for the general review. Luke or any of the other reviewers that may be on the line, if they have anything to add, please feel free to reach out. And if not, we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So I believe this picture is all of the different picks from the 4 different teams, different submissions. Some of the fracture plane interpretations, and that was really the whole point of this this competition, was to see how fracture interpretations can change with different processing techniques. So it's encouraging to see similarities in some of the models, but also the ones that differ. I mean, those are just as important, because they offer an opportunity for the Forge team to look at this and see if they've missed something within their own fracture plane analysis. So now we'll get to specific team feedback. I'm not going to belabor these too much, just because most of them were summarized before. But for the SNU team, using additional geologic context to make well-informed interpretations, and also using the time for the microseismic events to do proper clustering analysis. The reviewers were pretty impressed with that as well. The visualization piece, I'm going into some of the what needs to be worked on. The visualization, there were some pretty large planes within the visualization, so more explanation on the interpretation of those planes and why those planes reach such an extent would be helpful. And also talking about the differences in the different indicators. That was something that the reviewers had noticed. So go ahead and go to the next slide. For the Geo Warriors, the reviewers were pretty impressed with the k-means clustering method that was used. It was pretty innovative how they had put together their k-means clustering. It was pretty out of the box, and the innovation aspect of this application was really high. We did hope that the teams would use the temporal component of the microseismic data, and the fracture plane picks were not verified with the stress orientation data, which a way to double check setting in this reservoir. Areas of improvement, like I said, the innovation was really impressive, but the team could have benefited from using the resources available through the Datathon bootcamps, and then verifying the fracture plane orientations. Next slide. For Team NDT, the pre-processing and clustering techniques were really thoroughly explained, and there were several different clustering methods that were identified and tested to determine clustering application. However, some of the reviewers, it wasn't necessarily clear how the fracture interpretation was chosen. And there was missing visualizations and explanations on that fracture interpretation, which would have helped the reviewers kind of understand why those planes were picked to those clustered groups. A couple of the reviewers also noticed that the DFN had primarily horizontal features, which, similar to the previous team, the supporting stress data can be helpful in QCing the fracture planes and making sure that the fracture planes that are picked are corresponding with the geologic context. Next slide.
Andy, can you can turn your camera off so it will improve the quality of the
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point. I will do that.
Did we miss? We missed. 1 second. Let me stop my sharing. I think one slide was missing. 1 second.
Last slide.
Sorry about that.
And while Pushpesh is finding that last slide for the thermoseekers, I want to just say that the feedback for each of the teams, if you are considering reviewing your application prior to the announcement, we wanted to provide some of the observations that we had noticed. So, and okay, great. Thanks, Pushpesh. So the last team, thermoseekers, developed a clustering method identifying many fractures, but doing a pretty comprehensive QC and rejection analysis and clustering fractures So the reviewers were very impressed with the pre-processing and data engineering that went into microseismic. Also, so that was something that we had noticed. There was an explanation, not in the video, but there was an explanation of improving stimulation using the different modifications to the completion design in the README file, and so that was something that benefited this team in the review process. But the horizontal fractures in this interpretation didn't align with the fracture orientations, although the fractures were validated. There were horizontal fractures in the interpretation that seems to conflict with the corresponding data. And another observation was the distance from the producer well for this interpretation seemed quite far. And the reviewers were looking for a little bit more of an explanation as to how this was calculated, because there was a different type of analytics applied using NPV versus net power output. So trying to understand that a little bit better through explanation from the team would have been helpful in understanding the well placement. And I think that is all for the judging feedback. So thank you to the 4 teams. Obviously, this was a pretty heavy effort by you all to get these interpretations and do this work. And
Yep. Thank you, Andy, and thank you. As Andy mentioned, I think it was a very complicated submission. So we really appreciate all the teams who submitted final results, and I think everybody enjoyed seeing the details and like intricacies of each solution. So again, thank you so much. Moving on to the next part is a word from another sponsor, Project Innerspace. So Danny, over to you.
Thanks, Pushpesh. Can you hear me well? Sound
Yes.
is okay? Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel Merino. I'm the R&D lead inside of Project Innerspace. We are a non-profit association that is based in the US, but has a global reach. And we're funded by philanthropists with a mission to turn geothermal into terawatts of energy. Yeah? And in order to do so, we are developing products to break a couple of barriers that exist for geothermal to grow. Namely, number one is we're developing a worldwide favorability map. We're engaging with hundreds of scientists to clean subsurface data so that we can evaluate better the potential for geothermal, not so much in those areas where already have geothermal, but in many countries in the global south, Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, that may not be the case. So we're trying to break that barrier. The second one is about the fact that there's so much technology and ideas that have not been deployed because nobody wants to do the first of a kind. So we're creating a fund that will hopefully be ready by the end of the year so that we can support those first of a kind demonstrations. Yes, I forgot to mention that the database that I mentioned at the beginning, the favorability data maps, we expect to have the first product, the first release at the end of the year as well. The reason why we are supporting SPE is that, I mean, we've seen the effort that they're doing in 2 different directions. First of all, try to engage with the community and bring the oil and gas industry into geothermal. That's something that we value, but also the opportunity to make sure that the geothermal industry is not losing track in the use of AI. So this Datathon clearly checks the boxes in these 2 objectives. So my hat off for all the work that Pushpesh and the rest of SPE is doing with these Datathons.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, thank you, Danny, for your support.
Yeah, there's actually a third barrier, and that's also a reason why we're supporting this, which is awareness. And in order to increase the awareness about geothermal, we have a conference called Pivot Conference that is a free event, and it's well, you can see that I'm Spanish because that's a very bad grammatic mistake. I apologize for that. It's a free annual virtual event. You can check YouTube to see what's happened in the 3 previous years. And this year we will again host the finals and the announcement of the winners of the Datathon. You also have a link to join Pivot this year. What we will do is that we're going to be engaging with the focal points of the 4 teams, and whoever we're selecting now, if they cannot attend, on the 16th of September at 3:15 Central Time, you can, of course, select somebody else in the team. The dynamics that we want to run is we will have Silvio, the technical director for data science and engineering analytics in SPE, moderating and hosting the event. We want to spend quite some time in a conversation with the focal points. As I said, we also want to bring awareness on how the Datathon happened. What is your position on geothermal? Why are you doing this? And the journey that you follow, we believe it's going to be important for others to feel engaged and want to participate in subsequent years. Then Silvia will announce the winner, and we will make a presentation. We will just broadcast to honor the winner. We will show the presentation that you have prepared, those 15 minutes presentations. Total of 45 minutes. And as I said, we will be contacting the focal points shortly. You will receive an invitations with further instructions, what background to use, etc., etc. So that's something that we can advance through the next couple of weeks, because as I said, we're going to be broadcasting live this announcement on the 6th of September. That's all from me, Pushpesh. I don't know if anybody has questions that I may be able to solve now.
No, that's it. Thank you. I think we can take questions now, and we wanted to hear from you. There is a feedback form that we posted link for, so you can post your feedback. If you want to give it afterwards, just feel free to give some feedback, and we'll share this PowerPoint also through email and also through Slack, so you can also look at the feedback in detail, the judges' feedback, and all the different logistics about the final event in Pivot. But with that, we don't have any other item in the agenda, so I wanted to give some opportunity to people who joined the call to see if they have any comment, feedback, or any questions related to the Datathon. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
This is Jeff Bailey. I was curious, what was the range of offset distances among the 4 teams that was considered optimal?
Andy or Luke, do you remember?
Off the top of my head, I think it ranged from 100 meters to 400 meters, but I'd have to go back and double check.
Did most of the teams use GeoDT for modeling?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe.
Thank you.
Oh, Andy, you're cutting in and out, I think so. But Jeff, yeah, I think most of our team used GeoDT to answer your question. And what we'll do is we can also all the submissions are available on YouTube. So I'll just have to get some permissions from all the submitters. If every team agrees, we can release those videos as a public videos. Right now, they are hidden videos, or you cannot, and not anybody can see it. But if we can ask the permissions from other participants, and if they agree, we can make them available open. I see some chat. Okay. So 3 of the 4 teams use GeoDT. Any other questions, comments, feedback?
This is K1. I just wanted to thank everybody. Thanks for the great presentation today and the opportunity. Just wanted to say for the September 6th event, will this be, there will be a kind of a technical discussion on what was the thought process, the Utah Forge people on choosing the second well, and how they could compare their process of decision making versus how the teams worked. Not that it's the same, of course, it's a much more complex process that went on with Utah Forge, but I think it would be really educational for the participants and other people to really learn about the ground truth versus what we did.
Wow, I think that would deserve a 1 hour presentation by itself. I don't know. I mean, the problem with Pivot is that we have very restricted timeline. As I said, maybe that's something that we can coordinate together and give it the proper breadth that it deserves. And if that's not possible, then I'll just chat with Silvio and Pushpesh and see how that can be implemented in the current program. But just bear in mind that right now we don't have that much time. It's a very packed event. But as I said, maybe that deserves a proper 45 minutes or a proper hour to discuss that in the right detail. But
yeah,
yeah.
No, but I think it's a great suggestion. Maybe Kevin, we can take it back, and maybe as Danny was saying, for the pivot, it's a kind of packed agenda with like all the people coming in. So, but we can definitely do something as a follow up, and it'll be good to kind of circle back with the Utah Forge team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect.
Either way, we should make that happen. Yeah.
Pushpesh, I just want to make a comment that, some of the learnings you had from the team events, maybe they should be put together for the next Datathon, so the next teams are better prepared. And secondly, I may not be here for the September 6th event. I just want to take a moment to say thanks to, especially to you from our DSCA team and SPE, but Andy, Luke, and others who really have been working at this for many, many months, along with Silvio. So thank you all for teaming up. Without collaboration and collective effort, it wouldn't have happened. So a lot of dedication and volunteerism behind the scenes, besides some brilliant teams and, all the effort. So thank you all. I just wanted to say that it's been very energizing to see how this has come to this culmination point.
Thank you, Sushma.
And maybe just a quick suggestion for the dates for the Datathon for next year. I think it would be nice for it to be after the school year, because like for me, I'm from UT Austin, and I was kind of focused on final exams and stuff like that, and I really had a few days to figure out who to team up with and stuff like that. So it would be nice if we maybe push it back a little bit, couple of weeks next time. Just a suggestion for next time.
No, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, we can definitely consider this as a next event. Thank you.
So you can have the crux of the event May through August before the school starts. I think that's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's great as well. Hopefully my connection's okay and you can hear me. But Kevin, this is great feedback. We'd look forward to in the those comments and really make the next Datathon worthwhile and use that feedback to start.
Okay, I think Andy, you were cutting off again, but I think we got the gist of your sentiment. But yeah, I'll remind everybody to just fill in the survey. As I said, the survey is going to be very helpful in us driving the next event, as Sushma also mentioned. So it's going to help us make these events better for you guys and have a better experience for everybody. So just, it will take 1 minute, just go in and provide some feedback, and we'll see you on 6th of September. I just wanted to take 1 more minute to thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sushma, for the support and leadership. Thank you for all the volunteers and all the participants and sponsors. So we cannot thank everybody enough, but we'll keep counting on your support for next event. And with that, we'll close this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.